You haven't done anything sketchy today. You woke up, checked your phone, maybe searched for something on your lunch break, scrolled a little, bought something online. Completely ordinary. And yet, by the time you go to bed tonight, you will have generated a data trail so detailed that a stranger could reconstruct your entire day without ever meeting you. That's where this starts. Not in the dark. Right here. On the surface. Today we're mapping your entire life as every level of the dark web. From the surface, all the way down to the places so hidden, so depraved, most people don't even believe they exist. And I want to warn you right now. It gets so much worse than you're imagining. Every search you run, every app you open, every location ping your phone sends, every loyalty card you swipe, all of it is being quietly collected, packaged, sold. Data brokers pull information from the apps you use, the websites you visit, the loyalty cards you scan, and the location data from your phone. And then they do something that should genuinely unsettle you. They combine it into a shockingly detailed picture of your life, including where you go daily, down to the GPS coordinates. Not approximately, not roughly, down to the coordinates. This is what's called your data shadow, a portrait of you that exists entirely without your knowledge, without your consent. It knows your name, your home address, your estimated income, your health interests, your political leanings, the names of the people you live with. You could Google your own name right now and find a people search site listing your home address, your phone number, your estimated income, and the names of your relatives. And you didn't put any of that there. Someone collected it, packaged it, sold it. And they've been doing it for years. What makes this so hard to wrap your head around is that it's completely legal. The companies doing this aren't hiding. The global data broker market was valued at somewhere between $290 billion and $430 billion in 2025. That's not a black market. That's a legitimate, thriving industry built entirely on the raw material of your daily life. Over 4,000 data broker firms operate worldwide. Most of them you have never heard of. Most of them have never heard of you either. They just have your file. And the profile they're building is not vague. It is specific in a way that feels almost personal. This data is packaged and sold to advertisers, insurers, political groups, background check sites, and most worryingly, scammers. Your health searches from last Tuesday. The neighborhood you drove through 3 weeks ago. The income bracket they've inferred from your purchase history. All of it, assembled into a single document about you. Traded between companies you will never interact with, for purposes you will never be told about. Data brokers must now disclose the categories of personal data they collect. Health information, login credentials, biometric data, mobile advertising identifiers. That disclosure requirement exists because regulators finally started to acknowledge just how deep this goes. But disclosure is not the same as protection. Knowing your data is being sold is very different from being able to stop it. Going into 2026, the threat landscape has shifted completely. Scammers don't guess anymore. They buy. They use broker data to tailor scams, to impersonate companies you interact with, to mimic family members. The surface web built the file on you. It packaged it. It sold it. And at some point, that file stopped moving between advertisers and started moving somewhere else entirely. Somewhere that doesn't have a legal address, doesn't have a customer service line, doesn't care what you consented to. The surface web is not where the danger lives. It's where the danger is manufactured. Here's what actually happened to that file the surface web built on you. It didn't stay on the surface. It moved deeper. And where it moved to is somewhere you almost certainly visit every single day. You just didn't know it had a name. The deep web is any part of the internet not indexed by search engines. Your email inbox, your bank portal, your medical records, your cloud storage, your old forum accounts. You don't need special software to get there. You don't need anything sinister. You just need a password. That's the whole barrier between the world and the most sensitive information you own. A password. The deep web makes up roughly 90% of the entire internet. It is not a criminal underworld. It is where your life actually lives. Behind login screens. Behind account portals. And here is the crack. It has a name. Credential stuffing. And it is so much more disturbing than it sounds. Attackers use stolen username and password pairs from old breaches and test them automatically across multiple platforms to find reused passwords. They're not guessing. They're not trying to break the lock. They already have the keys. The question they're asking is simple. Did you use the same key on more than one door? And the answer, for most people, is yes. Think about the accounts you've had over the years. A gaming forum from years ago, a streaming service you signed up for and forgot about, a retail site that had a breach you never heard about. Every single one of those accounts, if it shared a password with something you use today, is a potential entry point into your current life. The core vulnerability is password reuse. Attackers with one valid credential can access dozens of services automatically. The scale of this is genuinely hard to process. In late 2025, nearly 2 billion email addresses and 1.3 billion unique passwords, sourced over years from cybercriminal forums and compromised stealer logs, were aggregated and indexed in a single credential stuffing dataset. That's not a future threat. That happened. Those credentials are in circulation right now. Attackers are testing stolen credentials against websites, banking apps, email accounts, and business systems. At a rate of 26 billion attempts per month globally. 26 billion attempts per month. Roughly 1/10 of 1% of credential pairs tested in a typical stuffing campaign result in successful logins. But feed 1 million stolen credentials into an automated bot, and up to 1,000 accounts fall. That math does not feel comforting when you consider how many accounts are being tested every single day. And the attacks aren't just hitting obscure platforms. In late March 2025, coordinated credential stuffing attacks hit 5 major Australian superannuation funds simultaneously. Attackers compromised over 20,000 accounts across those funds. 4 members lost a combined 500,000 Australian dollars. The attackers used combo lists from prior, completely unrelated breaches. Someone's retirement savings drained. Not because their pension fund got hacked, but because they reused a password from a breach they probably never even knew happened. That is the mechanism. A forgotten account on a platform you haven't thought about in years becomes the skeleton key to your current email. Your current email becomes the master key to everything else. Your bank, your cloud storage, your identity. It is a chain reaction that starts with something you did years ago and detonates in your life today. Verizon's 2025 Data Breach Investigations Report, built from more than 22,000 real-world security incidents, found that stolen credentials were the initial access vector in 22% of all confirmed breaches, the single most common method, ahead of vulnerability exploitation at 20%, phishing at around 16%, and every other attack type. Not malware, not sophisticated exploits, a username and a password you reused. But here's where it stops being about forgotten passwords and starts being about something much harder to fix. Because credential stuffing is still at its core a transaction. Someone gets in, they take what they can, and they move on. What happens next? What's already happening in the layer below this one is not a transaction. It's a marketplace. Attackers package stolen credentials into structured files and trade them freely across dark web forums and dedicated criminal communities. Your data at that point stops being a liability someone exploited. It becomes a product someone is actively selling. And the buyer isn't interested in getting into your accounts. They're interested in becoming you. Because the moment your data moves off those credential markets and into the deeper architecture of the dark web, it stops being a stolen password. It gets repackaged. It gets priced. It gets listed with a product description and a seller rating. And the thing being sold is you. Specifically, completely, and cheaply. This is the layer that most people picture when they hear dark web. But what they picture is wrong. They imagine something chaotic, obviously criminal. The reality is far more disturbing. Because dark web marketplaces in 2025 and 2026 are not chaotic at all. They are organized like common shopping websites. Product listings, prices, seller profiles, vendor reviews, escrow systems so buyers don't get scammed. The same design principles that made Amazon trustworthy have been applied with surgical precision to the business of selling your identity. And your identity packaged in full is called a fulls. A fulls is exactly what it sounds like. The full picture. Your name, your social security number, your date of birth, your home address, your bank account details, sometimes your credit score. A fool's package. Full name, social security number, date of birth, sells for an average of $20 to $100 on dark web markets. A fools with a high credit score and a clean record can clear the $100 ceiling. While basic personal information, name plus email, trades at less than $15 due to breach oversupply. Let that land for a second. The oversupply of stolen identities has driven the price of your name and email address below $15. There is so much of this data in circulation that it has become cheap. Every corporate breach restocks the shelves. With more than 15 billion stolen credentials circulating on underground marketplaces, credential trafficking is the foundation that enables most other dark web crimes. From fraud to ransomware, 15 billion. That is not a number that represents criminals targeting criminals. That is a number that represents ordinary people. People who did nothing wrong. People who just lived their lives online, whose information is now inventory. Now here's what makes this layer especially hard to dismantle. When law enforcement shuts one marketplace down, the inventory doesn't disappear. Every major darknet market shutdown follows the same pattern. Displaced vendors migrate within days. Listings reappear on surviving platforms. And within weeks, a new market emerges to fill the gap. The ecosystem doesn't collapse when a market goes offline. It reorganizes. From June 11th to 13th, 2025, Operation Deep Sentinel, led by Germany's BKA, supported by Europol, Eurojust, U.S. Homeland Security investigations, and law enforcement from several other countries, executed a coordinated takedown, seizing servers in the Netherlands, freezing digital assets, arresting the suspected administrator in Barcelona. Authorities also confiscated approximately 7.8 million euros in assets, phones, computers, and drugs. A massive operation. An international effort. And within days, vendors began redistributing across surviving darknet platforms. A well-documented pattern following every major marketplace takedown. The listings came back. Your data came back with them. A notable trend in 2026 is the growing market for KYC bypass packages. Stolen identities paired with matching selfies, often obtained from stealer logs that capture webcam images, sold specifically to bypass identity verification on financial platforms. This represents an uncomfortable escalation in the identity fraud ecosystem. That's the piece that stops being about money. The marketplace is transactional. Someone buys your fulls, they commit fraud, they move on. That's almost rational in a horrible way. But there is a layer below this one, where the transaction isn't the point. Where your data isn't being used to open a fraudulent credit line. Where it's being used to find you. This is the forum layer, and it is a completely different kind of disturbing. Doxing campaigns follow a recognizable pattern. Personal information is first shared in small, closed communities, private forums, encrypted channels, fringe platforms, before spreading to mainstream sites. The marketplace sold your data as a product. The forums weaponize it as a target, and the people doing it are not always motivated by money. Sometimes it's ideology. Sometimes it's a grudge. Sometimes it's nothing more than the fact that you said something online that someone didn't like. Here is how it actually works. And I want you to stay with this, because the methodology is the part that makes it genuinely terrifying. Someone decides to target you. They don't need to buy a fulls. They don't need special access. They start with the data shadow you built on the surface web. The one we covered at the very beginning of this, your name, your social media profiles, the old forum accounts you forgot about. They cross-reference. They find the username you used on a gaming forum years ago and match it to a Reddit account with the same handle. That Reddit account has a post mentioning the city you live in. Another post mentions your employer. A photo you uploaded has location metadata embedded in it. GPS coordinates baked invisibly into the file itself that places you at a specific address. By combining fragmented data from leaked databases, public records, and background metadata from photos, attackers can publish a comprehensive dossier on an individual within minutes. Minutes. Not hours. Minutes. In the past, it required manual digging through social media. In 2026, malicious actors use automated scraping bots to compile a full 360-degree profile of a target. The data shadow you built by just living your life online? That is the ammunition. Every piece of it. And once it's assembled, it gets posted to a forum thread with a title that includes your name. The commercialization of personal data exposure has turned doxxing from isolated harassment into a structured service model. Threat actors now sell access to financial records, professional credentials, and private communications. The same way a vendor sells a product subscription. There is even a name for it now. Doxxing as a service. Cybercriminal groups collect and sell personal information obtained through data breaches, public records, and social media scraping. And platforms operate openly enough that buyers can browse tiered packages as they would on any e-commerce site. You can pay someone to have this done to another person. That is a real service that exists right now. And here is where I have to stop and give you the part of this story that most dark web videos skip entirely, because they want it to stay simple. The same infrastructure, the same Tor network, the same onion-routed anonymity, the same encrypted communication channels, is also what keeps some of the most important people in the world alive. Journalists and whistleblowers use SecureDrop and similar onion platforms to exchange sensitive information without leaving a traceable record. SecureDrop is an open-source platform developed by the Freedom of the Press Foundation that allows users to privately submit documents and sensitive materials without revealing their identity. Major newsrooms, including The Guardian and The Washington Post, run it. Activists and dissidents operating under authoritarian governments rely on Tor to organize, communicate, and access uncensored news that their governments have blocked on the surface web. The dark web was not built for criminal purposes. The U.S. Naval Research Laboratory originally developed it in the mid-90s to enable secure, anonymous communication for intelligence operatives, a use case that quickly extended to journalists, whistleblowers, and activists operating under authoritarian governments. The same technology that hosts a doxxing as a service storefront is the technology a source uses to hand a reporter documents that expose a government. That moral complexity is real, and it matters. The dark web is not purely a criminal underworld. It is a tool. And like every tool, what it does depends entirely on who is holding it. But back to the forum thread with your name in the title. Once your information is posted, the forum does something no marketplace does. It invites participation. Other users add details. Someone finds a photo. Someone locates a family member. The thread grows, and the information stops being digital. Exposing a private individual's home address, phone number, or family details is no longer a task for elite hackers and for the target. A single doxing incident doesn't just damage a reputation. It compromises physical safety in an instant. That is the shift this layer represents. Everything before this, the data shadow, the credential stuffing, the marketplace, was about information moving between systems. This is about information being pointed at a person, at a specific door, at a specific address that your phone's GPS coordinates already provided. Everything so far in this journey has been about what people know. The final layer is about what happens when the people who know it decide to move. But before we trace that path back, we need to look at what actually exists in the deepest operational layer of the dark web. And I need to dispel the mythology first. Because what you've probably imagined is not what's actually there. You've heard about red rooms, live-streamed torture, pay-per-view violence, interactive cruelty you can influence in real time. It is one of the most persistent legends attached to the dark web, and it is almost certainly fiction. No verified red room has ever been confirmed by law enforcement, by independent researchers, or by any credible source. The story keeps circulating because it is terrifying. And terrifying things spread. But the documented reality of the operational layer is disturbing enough on its own. And in some ways, it is worse than the myth. Because it is real, and it is ongoing. The dark web's criminal ecosystem extends into categories that carry severe human consequences, independent of financial harm. Hidden forums facilitating the trade of child sexual abuse material remain a high-priority target for international law enforcement, with coordinated operations resulting in arrests across multiple jurisdictions annually. A coordinated investigation in 2025 managed to dismantle a darknet child abuse ring across 3 continents. That's not a future ambition. That happened. And the people arrested were not shadowy figures in some distant criminal underworld. They were people who had ordinary surface web lives, ordinary data shadows, ordinary login credentials. Right up until the moment they weren't. Weapons trafficking persists across marketplaces, with thousands of listings observed in researcher surveys. Botnet access, pre-infected systems, zero-day exploits, advanced persistent threat toolkits available for purchase at price points that make nation-state grade attack capability accessible to well-funded criminal groups. And then there are the contract services, the hitman sites. I want to be precise here. Because this is another area where myth and reality blur in uncomfortable ways. Research into active dark websites advertising contract killing services consistently finds that the vast majority of these sites are scams, though the intent behind the payments is often real. Other services listed included kidnapping, arson, assault, weapons sales, and private investigation services. The overwhelming consensus among law enforcement and researchers is that the vast majority of these sites are scams. They take cryptocurrency deposits and disappear. But the fact that the market for them exists, that people are actively searching for and paying for these services, is its own kind of disturbing. And in documented cases, the intent behind the payment was entirely real. Now here is where your journey completes. Because this is where I need to bring you back to where you started. You started on the surface web, where your data shadow was built from every search, every app, every loyalty card swipe, packaged and sold by an industry worth roughly $290 billion. That shadow moved into the deep web, where it sat behind login screens that credential stuffing attacks were already testing. Operation Raptor in 2025 alone resulted in the arrests of roughly 270 darknet vendors, buyers, and administrators across multiple continents. And every one of those arrests traced back to a chain that started with ordinary credentials from ordinary people. Your packaged identity then hit the marketplace layer, where a FULS sells for as little as $20. Because the supply of stolen data is so enormous, the price has collapsed. It moved into the forum layer, where doxxing as a service turned your data shadow into a targeted dossier. And now, in the operational layer, that information exists in a space where the people holding it are not running credit applications. They are making decisions. So here is what you actually do about it. 5 things, starting today. First, remove yourself from data broker sites. This is where the chain begins. Opt-out tools submit removal requests to the major brokers on your behalf, because doing it manually would take you hundreds of hours, and they relist you the moment you stop. Cut the supply at the source. Second, audit your old accounts. Go back through every email address you've ever used and find the accounts attached to it. A gaming forum from a decade ago. A streaming service you signed up for once. Every forgotten account is a potential credential stuffing entry point into your current life. Delete what you can. Change what you can't. Third, enable breach monitoring. Run your email addresses through a reputable breach monitoring service and set up ongoing alerts. Not a one-time scan. Continuous monitoring. Because the marketplaces don't close at night, and neither do the breaches. Fourth, use unique passwords everywhere, managed through a password manager. This is the single most direct counter to credential stuffing. If every account has a different key, a stolen credential from one breach unlocks exactly one door. Fifth, understand what you can and cannot scrub. You can remove yourself from data brokers. You cannot remove data that has already been purchased and is sitting in a criminal database. What you can do is make yourself a harder target going forward, which is genuinely meaningful because attackers are running automated tools that optimize for easy wins. Make yourself the hard one. The dark web has not contracted under sustained law enforcement pressure. It has restructured. Major marketplace takedowns in 2025 and 2026, including Hydra, Alphabay, Genesis Market, Archetype, and others, disrupted specific platforms and led to genuine arrests. But the ecosystem survived every one of them. Despite major law enforcement successes, the dark web market ecosystem shows no signs of collapse. 7 major marketplaces continue operating as of late 2025. New vendors and buyers replace arrested predecessors. The fundamental economics driving these platforms remain intact. That is the honest answer. The dark web is not a place you visit. It is a place that already knows you. It has your name, your address, your credentials, your habits, your health searches, and in some cases, the GPS coordinates of your front door. It has known you for years. The only question, the one this entire journey was always building toward, is whether you know it back. Because the people who understand how this system works are not powerless. They are the ones who collapsed their data shadow before someone else monetized it, who caught the breach alert before the fraud cleared, who made themselves the hard target in a system optimized for easy ones. You started this video doing something ordinary. You're ending it knowing something most people don't. That is not nothing. That is exactly where the power shifts. Subscribe so you don't miss the next investigation. Because next, we're showing you exactly how much of your data is already for sale right now, and how to